Daddy, she needs help. When a veteran single dad pulls over on a stormy night, his little girl's plea drags him into saving a billionaire, hiding a dangerous secret that could destroy them all. But can love and faith protect them when the truth comes out? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain hammered against the metal roof of Lincoln Elementary's auditorium, creating a steady rhythm that matched Jack Donovan's heartbeat. He sat 3 rows from the front, his weathered hands folded in his lap, watching the empty stage where Maddie would soon appear. The wooden seat creaked beneath him, same seats that had been here when he was a boy, same musty smell of old velvet curtains mixed with floor wax. A photograph tucked in his wallet seemed to burn against his chest. Sarah would have loved this, would have fussed over Maddie's hair, straightened her dress one more time, whispered encouragement that only mothers knew how to give. 3 years gone, and the ache still caught him at moments like these. The lights dimmed, parents shuffled and hushed. Mrs. Henderson announced each student with practiced cheer, and then there she was. Maddie walked onto the stage in her navy dress, the one they'd found at Goodwill last month. Her dark hair caught the stage lights just like Sarah's used to. Same determined set to her small shoulders, same way of tilting her head when nervous. She sat at the piano bench, adjusted once, twice. Her fingers found the keys. The first notes of Für Elise floated across the auditorium. Not perfect, the middle section wavered, and she hit one key too hard, making it ring out sharp, but she kept going. Jack's chest swelled. That was his girl. When she finished and gave her little bow, he clapped loud enough for 2 parents. After the recital, they pushed through the crowd of families. Maddie's hand felt small and warm in his. That squeaky note in the middle sounded like Mrs. Peterson's cat, she said, grinning up at him. Thought it added character. Dad, you have to say that. No, I don't. Remember last year's clarinet incident? Told you straight that sounded like a goose with bronchitis. She giggled, the sound bright against the rain. At the Quick Mart, Jack bought 2 hot chocolates with extra marshmallows, their tradition after any performance, good or bad. Maddie held hers with both hands in the truck, steam fogging her window as she drew hearts in the condensation. The windshield wipers struggled against the downpour. Jack kept both hands on the wheel, watching the yellow lines blur and reappear. Highway 42 stretched empty ahead, just farmland and the occasional mailbox catching his headlights. Dad? There's someone there. Jack glanced where Maddie pointed. A silver Mercedes sat crooked on the shoulder, hazard lights pulsing weak orange through the rain. Expensive car, city plates. But what made him slow wasn't the car. It was the figure hunched beside it. A woman in what looked like a dark coat, sitting right there on the wet gravel, head down like she'd given up on everything. Keep driving, sweetheart. Not our... Daddy, she needs help. Maddie's voice carried that tone she'd inherited from her mother. The one that said she'd already decided what was right and wrong. And there was no negotiating. Jack's foot hovered over the gas pedal. Years of keeping his head down, avoiding trouble, protecting what little they had, all of it warred against the pleading in his daughter's eyes. The woman hadn't moved. Rain streamed off her bent form. He pulled over 20 yards ahead, gravel crunching under the tires. Stay here. But Dad... Maddie... Stay. He grabbed the flashlight from under his seat and stepped into the storm. Cold rain soaked through his flannel shirt immediately. His boots splashed through puddles as he approached, keeping the flashlight low, non-threatening. The woman looked up. Expensive coat, definitely. Designer, probably cost more than his truck. Her face was pale, makeup running in dark streams. She blinked against his flashlight, seemed to be struggling to focus. Ma'am, you hurt? She tried to stand, wobbled. Jack caught her elbow before she fell. I'm fine, just waiting for... Her words slurred slightly. Not drunk, something else. Exhaustion, maybe shock. AAA ain't coming in this weather, not for hours. Behind him, a truck door slammed. Of course. Maddie, I told you to... But his daughter was already there, her unicorn umbrella held high, trying to shelter the woman. "You're all wet," Maddie said, matter-of-factly. "And cold. Daddy, she's shaking." The woman stared at Maddie like she was seeing an angel, or maybe just surprised that anyone would stop, let alone a child with a purple unicorn umbrella in the middle of nowhere. "My phone died," the woman said, steadier now. "The car just stopped. I don't know why." Jack recognized her then, not personally, but the face. He'd seen it on the news, in magazines, at the grocery checkout. Rebecca Hawthorne, the billionaire, the one they called the Iron Lady of Wall Street. "We live just up the road," he heard himself saying. "You can dry off. Use our phone. Call whoever you need." Rebecca Hawthorne looked between him and Maddie, rain still streaming down her face despite the umbrella. Her expression shifted, vulnerability quickly covered by suspicion, then something like resignation. "I couldn't impose." "It's not imposing if we're offering," Maddie said firmly. She took Rebecca's hand without asking. "Come on. Dad makes good coffee." Jack watched his daughter lead one of the richest women in America toward their beat-up Chevy, and despite everything, the storm, the strangeness, the way trouble seemed to follow charity, he found himself almost smiling. The inside of Jack's truck smelled like hot chocolate and wet flannel. Rebecca sat rigid between him and Maddie, her designer coat dripping onto the cracked vinyl seat. Her fingers trembled as she tried to smooth her ruined hair. "What's your name?" Maddie asked, bouncing slightly despite her seatbelt. "Rebecca." "That's pretty." Like in the Bible, she was Isaac's wife. "We learned about her in Sunday school." Rebecca's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Yes, I suppose so. Are you from the city?" "Your car has city plates." "New York." "Wow. Have you seen the Statue of Liberty?" "Every day from my office." Jack kept his eyes on the road, but he felt Rebecca's tension. She sat like someone waiting for an interrogation, back straight, hands clasped. The heat from the vents slowly filled the cab, and he noticed her shoulders start to drop. "Dad and I went to Chicago once," Maddie continued, filling the silence like she always did with strangers. "But New York must be way bigger. Do you have a dog?" "I want a dog, but Dad says our yard's too small." "Our yard's fine," Jack muttered. "Dogs are expensive." "Everything good's expensive," Maddie said sagely, then turned back to Rebecca. "So do you?" "Do I what?" "Have a dog?" "No, I travel too much." "That's sad. Dogs are good when you're lonely." The silence that followed made Jack glance over. Rebecca stared at Maddie with an expression he couldn't read, surprise maybe, or recognition. Their house appeared through the rain, a two-bedroom ranch with peeling blue shutters and a porch light that flickered when the wind blew hard. Nothing special, nothing like what Rebecca Hawthorne was used to. "Home sweet home," Maddie announced. Jack parked close to the door. "I'll come around with the umbrella." "I can walk." But when Rebecca stood, she swayed. Jack caught her arm, felt her weight shift against him. She was burning up despite the cold rain. "Easy, now." They made it inside in an awkward shuffle, Maddie holding the door, Jack half carrying Rebecca, though she tried to walk on her own. The house wrapped around them, warm air from the wood stove, the smell of morning coffee still lingering, that particular quiet that comes with small spaces lived in well. Rebecca stopped just inside the doorway. Her eyes traveled over everything, the mismatched furniture, the wall of family photos, Maddie's piano against the far wall. The Afghan Jack's wife had crocheted draped over the recliner. "Sit here." Maddie pulled Rebecca toward that same recliner. "It's Dad's chair, but he won't mind. Dad, get the fuzzy blanket from the closet. The green one. Not the scratchy brown one." Jack obeyed his daughter's orders, returning with the blanket and a towel. Rebecca had sunk into the recliner like her strings had been cut. Up close, under the warm lamplight, she looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands shook as she accepted the towel. "I'll make tea," Jack said. Coffee would be— Tea, Maddie interrupted. Mom always said tea when you're sick. Coffee makes your stomach worse. Rebecca blinked at the child's certainty. Tea, then. In the kitchen, Jack could hear Maddie chattering while he filled the kettle. Something about her piano recital, her teacher Mrs. Hendricks, how Tommy Sullivan put gum in Emma's hair last week. Normal kid stuff. But Rebecca's responses grew steadier, less guarded. He brought the tea in a mug that said, "World's okayest dad," a Father's Day gift from Maddie. Rebecca wrapped both hands around it, letting the steam rise to her face. "This is very kind," she said carefully, like she was picking her way through a minefield. "I should call someone. My assistant. Or dash dash. Phone's in the kitchen when you're ready." Jack stayed by the doorway, arms crossed, but not aggressive. Just careful. Tow truck won't come out in this weather till morning, though. Earl's the only tower in 50 miles, and he doesn't work nights anymore. Bad back. Rebecca absorbed this information with visible dismay. I see. There's a motel about 30 miles up the highway. Dad? Maddie looked scandalized. She's sick. She can't go to that gross motel. Remember the Beatles? Maddie, she can have my room. I'll sleep on the couch. I love the couch. Maddie turned to Rebecca with absolute certainty. You're staying here. Rebecca looked between them, the child with her mother's determined compassion, the father trying to maintain boundaries with a stranger who could buy their entire town. I couldn't possibly. Why not? Maddie asked with genuine confusion. You need help. We can help. That's what people do. The billionaire stared at the 10-year-old like she'd spoken in a foreign language. Then something in her face crumbled, just a little, the mask slipping. Yes, all right, thank you. Jack watched his daughter beam, watched Rebecca sink deeper into his chair, watched the rain streak the windows. The Iron Lady of Wall Street was in his living room, drinking tea from his joke mug, looking smaller and more human than any magazine cover suggested. There's leftover stew, he offered quietly. Nothing fancy, but it's warm. Rebecca's eyes met his over the mug. For a second, he saw through all that wealth and power to something else, someone lost, someone running, someone who hadn't felt safe in so long she'd forgotten what it looked like. That sounds perfect, she said. The smell of pancakes pulled Rebecca from sleep. For a moment she didn't know where she was. No Egyptian cotton sheets, no view of the city skyline, no assistant knocking with her morning schedule, just a child's bedroom with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and a stuffed elephant watching her from a shelf. Maddie's voice drifted through the door, humming something that might have been a hymn or might have been a pop song. Pans clattered. Jack's deeper voice rumbled something that made the girl laugh. Rebecca sat up slowly. Her clothes from yesterday lay folded on a chair. Someone had dried them overnight. Her phone sat beside them dead. She'd turned it off somewhere around Indianapolis when the calls wouldn't stop. She dressed and followed the sounds to the kitchen. Jack stood at the stove, spatula in hand, while Maddie set the table with mismatched plates. They both looked up when she appeared. Morning? Maddie chirped. Dad makes the best pancakes. They're shaped like Mickey Mouse, but don't tell anyone because he says that's babyish. They're regular circles, Jack muttered, but Rebecca could see the careful 3-circle pattern on the griddle. Sit. Maddie pulled out a chair. Do you drink orange juice? We have the kind with pulp and the kind without. Dad likes pulp, but that's gross. Either is fine. Rebecca sat, feeling like she'd stumbled into someone else's life. The table had scratches and water rings. The syrup came in a squeeze bottle shaped like a bear. Everything felt real. Jack set a plate in front of her, 3 pancakes that were definitely meant to look like Mickey Mouse, bacon that was actually crispy, scrambled eggs that weren't from a hotel buffet. Her stomach growled. Thank you. She ate while Maddie chattered about her day ahead. Saturday meant cartoons, then library time, then maybe helping Mrs. Chen next door with her garden if it dried out enough. Normal things. Rebecca found herself eating everything on her plate, then accepting seconds when Jack offered without words. Your dress is really pretty. Maddie said suddenly. "Even with the mud." "Is it from Paris?" "Milan, actually." "That's in Italy." "We learned about Italy. They have that tower that leans." Maddie studied her with frank curiosity. "Are you famous? You dress like someone famous." Rebecca hesitated. "I'm in business." "What kind of business?" "Various kinds. Technology mainly. Some retail." "She's on TV sometimes," Maddie announced, proud of her observation. "I saw you when Dad was watching the news. You were walking really fast and people were trying to ask you questions." Jack's hand stilled on his coffee mug. His eyes found Rebecca's face, recognition dawning. Hawthorne Industries. She braced for it. The judgment, the sudden distance, maybe even anger at having a corporate raider in his home. Rich people weren't popular in towns like this, especially ones known for hostile takeovers, but Jack only nodded, like she'd confirmed something minor. "Thought you looked familiar." That was it. No gushing, no contempt. He went back to his coffee. Rebecca's phone rang from the counter where she'd plugged it in. The mechanic. She answered, listened, thanked him for the update. Her car would be at the dealership by noon. New rental delivered by 2. She could leave, get back to the battle waiting for her. "Everything all right?" Jack asked. She set the phone down, suddenly exhausted again. "The car's handled." "That's good." "Yes?" The word came out hollow. She pushed eggs around her plate. "Though I'm not sure where I'm going. The breakdown yesterday, it wasn't just mechanical." Maddie stopped humming. Jack waited. "There was a board meeting. An ambush, really. Someone I trusted, someone I've known for 15 years, orchestrated a media scandal, fed lies to reporters, turned half my board against me." The words spilled out to these strangers easier than they would have to her lawyers. "I left. Just left. Drove until the car died." "Running from a fight?" Jack's tone wasn't harsh, just curious. "Strategic retreat." "That what you're calling it?" Rebecca bristled. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand running." Jack turned his mug in slow circles. "Did it myself after Sarah died. Took Maddie and moved here from Chicago. Thought distance would fix things. It doesn't. The fight follows you. This is different. This is corporate dash dash. This is someone trying to take what's yours. Take your name, your work, your reputation." His eyes were steady on hers. "Running doesn't solve that. I learned that the hard way. As a soldier, as a man." Silence stretched. Rebecca wanted to argue, to explain how complicated everything was, how he couldn't possibly understand the complexities of a billion-dollar corporation under siege. "Then we'll help you," Maddie declared, breaking the tension with absolute certainty. Rebecca laughed. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of it. A child and a widowed veteran against corporate sharks. "Sweetheart, that's very kind, but Dad knows lots of people, and he's really good at fixing things. Not just cars and houses. Problems, too. Mrs. Patterson says he's the most dependable man in 3 counties. Maddie." "What?" "It's true." She turned back to Rebecca. "And you need help. So, we'll help." Rebecca looked at Jack, expecting him to correct his daughter, but he was watching Rebecca with that same steady gaze, and she realized with a start that he meant it. This stranger, who knew nothing about her except what the news said, who had nothing to gain and everything to lose, he would help if she asked. "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it. Jack shrugged. "Because you're sitting at my table, and my daughter's right. People help people. That's what we do." The garage smelled of motor oil and old rubber. Rebecca stood near the door in her ruined designer suit, watching Jack talk to the mechanic, a man named Earl, whose hands were permanently stained black under the nails. Her Bentley looked absurd on the lift. All that gleaming luxury surrounded by rust-spotted pickups and sensible sedans. 3 days minimum, Earl said, wiping his hands on a rag that made them dirtier. "Special parts for these foreign jobs. Have to ship them from Chicago." 3 days? Rebecca's voice pitched higher than intended. Earl shrugged. Could try Milwaukee, but Saturday afternoon, nobody's answering phones till Monday. Jack touched her elbow. Come on, nothing more to do here. They walked across Main Street to Murphy's Diner. Rebecca's heels clicked against cracked pavement. People glanced at her wrinkled silk and mud-stained coat, but their looks held only mild curiosity. In Manhattan, she'd have been photographed, whispered about, approached with fake smiles and hidden agendas. The diner's bell chimed overhead. Red vinyl booths, checkered floor, the smell of coffee that had been brewing since dawn. Jack nodded to an older couple in the corner booth. "Jack, Matty girl." A woman with silver hair and a Green Bay Packers sweatshirt waved them over. "Heard you played beautifully last night, sweetheart." Matty beamed. "Only messed up twice, Mrs. Walker. That's two less than last time. Progress." Mrs. Walker's eyes found Rebecca. "And who's this?" "This is Rebecca," Jack said simply. "Car broke down last night. She's staying with us till it's fixed." Oh, that storm was something. Roads were rivers. Mrs. Walker extended her hand. "Helen Walker. I run the library." Rebecca shook it, surprised by the firm grip. "Rebecca Hawthorne?" "Pretty name. You hungry?" "The pie today is apple. Tom made it fresh this morning." They slid into a booth. Mattie pulled out her sketchbook while they waited for coffee and pie. Rebecca watched the girl's concentrated face as she drew, tongue poking out slightly. "Can I see?" "What?" Mattie hesitated, then pushed the book across the table. The drawings were what you'd expect from a 10-year-old. Wonky proportions, impossible perspectives. But the subjects made Rebecca's throat tight. Page after page of the same woman with yellow crayon hair and a huge smile. Sometimes with wings, sometimes sitting on clouds, always watching over two figures below, a tall man in green, presumably Jack's uniform, and a small girl with brown pigtails. "That's Mom," Mattie explained unnecessarily. "She watches us from heaven. Dad says she's our guardian angel now." Rebecca turned pages slowly. There was their house, smoke curling from a chimney that defied physics. Jack pushing Mattie on a swing. The three of them, including the angel mother, around a dinner table. "These are—" Rebecca searched for words that weren't condescending. "Very detailed." "Do you draw?" "No, I barely have time to eat most days." "That's sad." Mattie took her book back. "Drawing makes me feel better when I'm sad." "Maybe you should try it." The pie arrived. Rebecca ate mechanically, watching Jack interact with a steady stream of people who stopped by their table. The pharmacist asking about his back. The hardware store owner confirming Tuesday's delivery. The pastor's wife reminding them about the potluck next week. Each conversation brief, warm, uncomplicated. No one wanted anything from Jack except his time, his presence. "Your phone's buzzing," Mattie pointed out. Rebecca glanced at the screen. 17 missed calls, 43 texts. Her stomach clenched. Outside, walking back to Jack's truck, she couldn't hold it in anymore. "His name is Charles Renwick." The words tasted bitter. "We've known each other since I was 22. He helped me build the company. I trusted him with everything." Jack opened the truck door for Mattie, then walked around to the driver's side. He didn't rush her. 3 weeks ago, he started spreading rumors, saying I'd been embezzling, insider trading, complete fabrications, but he has documents, forged, obviously, but sophisticated enough to fool reporters hungry for scandal. "Why?" "Because I refused to sell to a Chinese conglomerate. The deal would have made him $40 million personally, made me 3 times that, but I said no. Some things shouldn't be for sale." She laughed bitterly. "Apparently loyalty is one of them." Jack started the engine. "Betrayal from inside always cuts deeper, when someone knows exactly where to twist the knife." She stared at him. "Speaking from experience?" "Had a commanding officer once. Man I'd have died for. He threw me under the bus to save his own career. Made up stories about a mission that went bad. His hands tightened on the wheel. Took years to clear my name." "Did you?" "Mostly." Truth has a way of surfacing. Just takes time. Maddie leaned forward between the seats. You should stay tonight too, Rebecca. Tomorrow's Sunday. We make waffles on Sunday. I should get a hotel. Nearest one's 40 minutes away, Jack said. And your friend Renwick? He expecting you to run somewhere? Rebecca's phone buzzed again. Another reporter, another board member, all circling like vultures. He's probably tracking my credit cards, she admitted. Then don't use them. Stay off his radar. Think through your next move without him watching. It made sense, too much sense. This little house, these simple people. Renwick would never think to look for her here. One more night, she said. Maddie cheered. Jack just nodded, like he'd known all along what she'd decide. The truck rumbled down the country road. Rebecca watched fields roll by, so different from her steel and glass world. For the first time in 3 weeks, she felt like she could breathe, like maybe, in this unlikely place with these unlikely allies, she might find a way to fight back. Her phone buzzed again. This time she turned it off completely. Steam rose from the pot as Jack stirred the stew. Nothing fancy. Beef, potatoes, carrots, the basics. He watched through the kitchen window as Rebecca helped Maddie fold napkins at the dining table. The billionaire held each napkin like it might bite her, copying Maddie's movements with intense concentration. No, like this, Maddie demonstrated again, her small hands quick and sure. Mom taught me. She said presentation matters, even for everyday meals. Rebecca tried again, producing something vaguely triangular. Maddie giggled and fixed it. The cornbread came out golden. Jack set everything on the table while Maddie poured milk for herself, water for the adults. Rebecca sat stiffly, like she was in a board meeting rather than at a scratched oak table. This smells wonderful, she said, and seemed surprised by her own sincerity. They ate quietly at first. Then Maddie, never one for long silences, looked up at Rebecca. Do you have kids? Jack shot his daughter a warning glance, but Rebecca answered, No children. What about a husband or a wife? Mrs. Patterson down the street has a wife. Maddie, it's all right. Rebecca's smile flickered like a candle in wind. No husband either. Never found the time, I suppose. What about your mom and dad? The smile died completely. They passed away. Years ago. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside wind rattled the windows. Maddie's face crumpled with the weight of understanding. Here was another person who knew what missing felt like. Jack cleared his throat. You know, when I was stationed in Afghanistan, we got pinned down once, 6 days in a collapsed building. No backup coming. Rebecca looked grateful for the shift. What happened? Well, Torres, that was my sergeant. He was this tough Chicago kid. Never went to church a day in his life. But on day 4, when we're down to our last canteen of water, he starts praying. Not loud or showy, just quiet words in the dark. Jack spooned more stew into Maddie's bowl. I asked him about it later. He said when everything else fails, your training, your equipment, your strength, faith is what's left. The belief that you're not alone, even when logic says otherwise. Did backup come? Day 6. Right when we'd given up hope. Torres swears it was his prayers. I never argued. Rebecca pushed potato chunks around her bowl. I haven't prayed since I was 12. Maybe you should try, Maddie said simply. It helps. After dinner, Jack grabbed his jacket. Need to split some wood for tomorrow. Rebecca watched him disappear outside. Through the window she could see him in the fading light, setting logs on the stump, raising the axe in smooth, practiced arcs. There was something mesmerizing about it, the rhythm, the purpose. No committees, no presentations, just a man, an axe, and wood that needed splitting. He does that when he's thinking, Maddie said, appearing at Rebecca's elbow. Mom used to say it was his meditation. They stood together watching. Rebecca noticed the efficiency of his movements, the careful stacking of split logs. Even this simple task he did with complete focus. Your dad's a good man. The best. Maddie tugged Rebecca's sleeve, pulling her down to whisper distance. He doesn't say it, But he's lonely. You make him smile different." Rebecca straightened, heat rushing to her face. We barely know each other." "So? You look less sad when he's around too." Before Rebecca could respond, Maddie skipped off to get ready for bed. Rebecca remained at the window, watching Jack work, trying to name the feeling unfurling in her chest. It had been so long since she'd felt anything beyond ambition or anger. Later, after Maddie was tucked in, Jack sat at the kitchen table with his ancient laptop. The thing wheezed like it had emphysema, but it worked. Rebecca nursed a cup of tea across from him, enjoying the quiet. Then Jack's face changed. "What?" He turned the screen toward her. The headline screamed, "Hawthorne Industries CEO accused of fraud. Emergency board meeting called." Rebecca's hands shook as she read. Charles had filed legal motions, injunctions. He'd leaked more documents, each one more damaging than the last. Her lawyers were texting frantically. She needed to respond, needed to return to Chicago, needed to fight back immediately. The mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Tea spread across the linoleum. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," She dropped to her knees, grabbing at ceramic pieces. "Stop, you'll cut yourself." Jack knelt beside her, steadying her hands. "Rebecca, look at me." She met his eyes, and the dam broke. Tears she'd held back for weeks poured out. "I can't do this anymore. He knows everything, every weakness, every fear. I've been fighting alone for so long, and I'm tired, Jack. I'm so tired." He didn't release her hands. His calluses were rough against her manicured fingers. "Then don't fight alone. You don't understand what you're offering. He'll come after you too, you and Maddie. I won't let that happen. That's not your choice to make." From the hallway came a small voice. "We want to help." Maddie stood in her pajamas, hair mussed from bed. "Sweetheart, go back to—" "No, Daddy. She needs us." Maddie walked over, bare feet careful around the broken mug. "That's what we do. We help people who need it." Rebecca looked between them, this quiet veteran and his remarkable daughter. They were offering her something she'd never had. Not employees, not strategic partners, something else entirely. "I don't know how to accept help." Jack squeezed her hands gently, then released them. "That's okay. We'll teach you." The next morning, Jack's truck rumbled to life before dawn broke. Rebecca heard it through the guest room wall, the careful closing of the front door, the crunch of gravel, then fading engine noise. She lay there, uncertain. Without Jack's steady presence, the house felt different, smaller somehow. "Miss Rebecca." Maddie knocked softly. "Daddy left oatmeal stuff out. Want me to show you?" Rebecca found Maddie in the kitchen, standing on a step stool, measuring oats with the concentration of a chemist. 2 cups water, 1 cup oats. Easy. It wasn't easy. Rebecca scorched the bottom of the pot, forgot the salt, and somehow made it both watery and lumpy. Maddie didn't laugh. She just showed her how to start over, patient as a teacher, 3 times her age. Mom burned it too, first time. "Your mom cooked?" "Every day. Daddy learned from her. He says cooking is like love. You can taste when someone cares." Rebecca stirred the second batch carefully. It came out better. Not good, but edible. After breakfast, Maddie spread homework across the table. Math worksheets, a book report on Charlotte's Web, spelling words. Rebecca sat beside her, intending to help. "What's 7 times 8? Maddie counted on her fingers, lips moving. 56. "Good. How about this word problem?" They worked through equations Rebecca could have solved in her sleep, but watching Maddie puzzle them out was oddly satisfying. When laundry buzzed, Rebecca offered to fold while Maddie finished her spelling. The fitted sheet defeated her. She wrestled with it for 5 minutes before Maddie looked up. "Pinch the corners like this." Small hands demonstrated. "Mom showed me when I was 6. Rebecca followed the instructions, feeling foolish. She ran a company worth billions, but couldn't fold a sheet. When had she become so disconnected from simple things? There, you got it. The delight in Maddie's voice made Rebecca's embarrassment fade. They folded together, Maddie chattering about school, her best friend Emma, the puppy she hoped to get someday. Rebecca found herself actually listening, not the half attention she gave during business calls, but real focus. Jack returned as they were setting the table for lunch. He paused in the doorway, arms full of grocery bags, watching Rebecca laugh at something Maddie whispered. The sound transformed her face, erasing years of boardroom battles. "Don't stop on my account." "Daddy," Miss Rebecca made oatmeal. It was only a little burned. High praise in this kitchen. He unpacked the bags, milk, bread, vegetables, nothing fancy. Rebecca noticed he'd bought tea, the same brand she'd mentioned liking. Such a small gesture, but it caught her off guard. Over sandwiches, Rebecca's phone buzzed insistently. She silenced it twice before finally looking. "The board meeting." "It's in 2 days." "Chicago?" "Video conference. But I need to prepare financial records, legal documents." She rubbed her temples. "I should get a hotel room." "I can't impose." "You're not imposing." Jack's tone left no room for argument. "You'll stay here. We've got internet, quiet, and all the burnt oatmeal you can eat." Maddie giggled. Rebecca felt that unfamiliar warmth again, spreading through her chest. That evening felt like stepping into someone else's life. Rebecca helped set the table while Jack finished dinner, pot roast with vegetables from their small garden. Maddie arranged mismatched plates with the seriousness of a state dinner. "We say grace," Maddie announced, extending her hands. Rebecca hesitated, then took the offered hand. Maddie's fingers were small and warm. Jack's, on her other side, engulfed hers completely. "Dear God," Maddie began, "thank you for this food and for Daddy and for Miss Rebecca being here. Please help her be brave for her big meeting. And help the mean people see they're being mean. Amen." "Amen," Jack echoed. Rebecca managed a whispered "Amen," throat tight. Dinner conversation flowed easier than boardroom negotiations ever had. Jack told stories from his hardware store job. Maddie described her art project. Rebecca found herself sharing a memory of her grandmother's Sunday dinners before ambition consumed everything. After dishes, they gathered in the living room. Jack built up the fire while Maddie retrieved a worn copy of The Secret Garden. "We take turns reading," she explained. "You can have my turn tonight." Rebecca accepted the book, finding the bookmarked page. She hadn't read aloud since college presentations, but Maddie curled against her father on the couch, expectant, so Rebecca began. Her voice found its rhythm. The fire crackled. Jack's eyes closed, not sleeping, but peaceful. Maddie followed along, finger tracing under each line. The story pulled them all in, a lonely girl finding magic in unexpected places. When Maddie's eyes grew heavy, Jack carried her to bed. Rebecca stayed by the fire, watching flames dance behind the grate. "She prays every night," Jack said, returning. "Never misses." "You've raised her well." "I had help." "My wife, she laid the foundation." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Rebecca's phone lit up with another barrage of texts. Charles was escalating, feeding more lies to reporters, scheduling emergency sessions with board members. He knows exactly where to strike. We worked together for 15 years. He knows every vulnerability. Jack shifted to face her fully. "Tell me about him." So she did. Charles Renwick's betrayal. His systematic campaign to destroy her. The way he'd turned allies into enemies with half-truths and manipulation. Jack listened without interrupting. When she finished, drained, he stood and added another log to the fire. "My unit got ambushed once, caught between enemy fire and a cliff. No good options. You know what saved us?" Rebecca shook her head. "Realizing we weren't alone, another unit heard our distress call. They came." He sat back down, closer this time. "You're not facing this storm alone anymore." The words were simple. No grand promises, no strategic planning. Just fact, solid as the man speaking them. Rebecca believed him. The morning brought frost on the windows. Rebecca found Jack in the kitchen, already brewing coffee, the old percolator gurgling on the stove. "I need to pay you." She set her checkbook on the counter. "For the room, the meals." Jack poured 2 mugs without looking up. "Put that away." "Jack, please, let me dash. Kindness doesn't need a price tag." He handed her a mug. "You'd insult us both by trying to buy what was freely given." The rebuke was gentle, but firm. Rebecca closed the checkbook, unused to gifts without strings. Maddie bounced in, dressed for school in jeans and a purple sweater with a cartoon unicorn. "Can Miss Rebecca come to town with us?" "If she wants." Rebecca did want, surprising herself. She borrowed one of Jack's flannel shirts over her designer blouse. The contrast should have been ridiculous, but somehow it worked. The garage sat on Main Street between a barber shop and a thrift store. Rebecca's Mercedes looked alien among the pickup trucks and sedans. The mechanic, a grease-stained man named Earl, barely glanced at her. "Parts coming tomorrow. Should have her running by Thursday." "Appreciate it, Earl." They walked to the diner, Maddie skipping ahead. The lunch crowd filled most booths: farmers, shopkeepers, retirees nursing coffee. Jack waved to several, introducing Rebecca simply as a friend from out of town. "There's Uncle Tom." A man rose from a corner booth, broad shoulders, salt and pepper beard, the same steady bearing as Jack. Not actual family, Rebecca realized, but the brotherhood kind, forged in foxholes. "Tom Willis." His handshake was firm. "Jack mentioned you were visiting." They slid into the booth. Tom studied Rebecca with sharp intelligence behind his casual manner. "Jack says you're having some business troubles." "That's one way to put it." The waitress brought menus. Maddie ordered chocolate chip pancakes for lunch, which Jack allowed with minimal protest. Rebecca barely noticed her salad when it arrived. Tom was asking precise questions about Renwick, about the company's structure, about the timeline of attacks. "I run a small security outfit now, corporate stuff mostly, background checks, fraud investigation." "Tom's being modest," Jack interrupted. "He's got contacts everywhere, FBI, SEC, journalists who actually care about truth." Tom pulled out his phone, ancient by Silicon Valley standards, but functional. "Mind if I make some calls?" Discreetly, of course. Rebecca hesitated. In her world, favors came with invoices. "I can't ask you to, "You didn't ask," I offered. "But you don't even know me." Tom glanced at Jack, some silent communication passing between them. "I know Jack. That's enough." He excused himself, stepping outside. Through the window, Rebecca watched him pace, phone pressed to his ear, gesticulating with his free hand. "Why?" she asked Jack. "Why help a stranger?" "You're not a stranger anymore." Maddie looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. "Daddy helps everybody. It's what good people do." The simplicity of it staggered Rebecca. No contracts, no quid pro quo, just help, because help was needed. Tom returned as they finished eating. "We should talk." "Not here." They drove back to Jack's house. Maddie disappeared to her room to finish homework while the adults gathered around the kitchen table. Tom spread out handwritten notes. "Charles Renwick is dirty, has been for years." Rebecca leaned forward. "Your name appears on several shell company registrations, accounts in the Caymans, Luxembourg, money flowing in, flowing out, all dated after you refused his buyout offer last year. That's forgery. Identity theft? That's conspiracy to commit fraud, federal crime." Tom tapped one paper. "This account received payments from 3 companies your firm was supposedly consulting for. Except you never consulted for them, did you?" "Never heard of them." "Because Renwick invented them. He's been building a paper trail to frame you for embezzlement, probably planning to discover it during the board meeting, present himself as the whistleblower saving the company. Rebecca's hands shook. The scope of betrayal went deeper than she'd imagined. "Can you prove this?" "My contact at the FBI can. With your permission, I'll send him what I've found, quietly. Let them build a real case while Renwick thinks he's winning." "Do it." Tom gathered his notes. "Rebecca, this evidence could clear you completely, but Jack's right about one thing." "What's that?" Jack spoke up. "Truth only matters if you have the courage to speak it. That board meeting, you'll need to face them all. Tell your side without flinching." After Tom left, Rebecca sat stunned. In 24 hours, these strangers had done more to help her than her paid attorneys managed in weeks. Maddie appeared with her art supplies. "I made something." She produced a drawing, 3 figures holding hands. A tall man in green, Jack's flannel, a little girl with yellow hair, and a woman in blue. Above them she'd written, "My family," in careful letters. "That's you," Maddie pointed. "And Daddy and me." Rebecca's vision blurred. When Maddie skipped off to brush her teeth, Rebecca carefully folded the drawing and tucked it into her bag, next to contracts worth millions that suddenly seemed like worthless paper. Jack noticed, but said nothing. Some gifts were meant to be kept secret, held close like armor against the world's coldness. That night, as Rebecca lay in the guest bed, she pulled out the drawing again. 3 figures, hands linked, standing together. Family. The word felt foreign and familiar all at once. Sunday morning arrived with church bells cutting through the crisp air. Rebecca stood before the guest room mirror, studying her reflection in Maddie's mother's old dress, simple navy cotton, that hung loose on her frame. "It fits okay?" Jack asked from the doorway. "It's perfect." Strange how borrowed clothes felt more honest than her designer wardrobe. Maddie burst in wearing her Sunday best, a green dress with tiny flowers. "You look pretty, Miss Rebecca." The walk to church took 10 minutes. Rebecca pulled the borrowed cardigan tighter, terrified someone might recognize her. But the family streaming toward the white steeple paid her no mind. She was just another neighbor joining the flock. Inside, warm oak pews stretched beneath stained glass that painted rainbow patterns on the floor. The air smelled of old hymnals and furniture polish. People nodded welcomes, shook hands, asked no questions beyond "first time here." They settled into a pew near the back. Maddie positioned herself between them, small hands reaching for both adults as the organ swelled. When the congregation rose to sing, Maddie gripped their fingers tight, voice clear and sweet on Amazing Grace. Rebecca's throat closed. When had she last sung anything? When had she stood shoulder to shoulder with strangers, united in something beyond profit margins? Pastor Green took the pulpit, his voice gentle but firm. He spoke of storms, real ones and metaphorical ones, of boats rocked by waves while disciples panicked. Fear tells us we're alone in that boat, but faith reminds us who commands the wind and waves. Rebecca's chest tightened. When adversity strikes, we have 2 choices. We can rely on our own strength until it fails, and it will fail, or we can stand firm in faith, knowing we're held by hands stronger than our own. Tears burned behind Rebecca's eyes. Years of boardroom battles flashed through her mind. Always alone, always armed with nothing but ambition and spite. Where had it led? To a breakdown on a roadside, rescued by strangers who fought her battles without being asked. The sermon continued, but Rebecca barely heard it. Maddie's hand in hers felt like an anchor. Jack's solid presence radiated the very faith Pastor Green described, quiet, unshakable, tested by loss, but not broken. After the service, people lingered, chatting over coffee and store-bought cookies. Jack guided them toward Pastor Green. "This is Rebecca. She's visiting." Pastor Green's handshake was warm, his eyes kind behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Welcome. I hope you found something useful in today's message." More than useful. The admission surprised her. Necessary. Sometimes we need reminding that our battles aren't meant to be fought alone. His smile held no judgment. "You're welcome here any time, Rebecca." Our doors don't close. Outside, walking home through neighborhoods where kids played in yards and dogs barked lazy greetings, Rebecca felt exposed and safe simultaneously. "I haven't been to church since college." "Why'd you stop?" Maddie asked with characteristic directness. "I guess I thought I didn't need it anymore. Thought I was strong enough on my own." "That's silly. Nobody's strong enough alone." Jack chuckled. "From the mouths of babes. I haven't prayed in years either. Wouldn't know where to start." Maddie skipped ahead, then turned, walking backward. "It's never too late. God doesn't have a watch." That evening, they prepared supper together. Vegetable soup from scratch, bread from the bakery. Rebecca chopped carrots with unusual concentration, finding rhythm in the simple task. They ate quietly, comfortable in shared silence. "I'll wash," Rebecca offered when they finished. Jack started to protest, but she was already gathering bowls. He dried while Maddie did homework at the table. Domestic choreography, unremarkable, except Rebecca had never been part of such a dance. Later, after Maddie's bedtime story, Rebecca stepped onto the porch. Stars crowded the sky, brilliant without city lights to dim them. The wooden boards creaked when Jack joined her. They stood wordlessly, breath clouding in the cool air. "Do you think God still listens to someone like me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Jack leaned against the railing, considering. "You know what I learned in the desert? When everything was chaos and sand and death?" She waited. "God doesn't stop listening. We stop talking. We convince ourselves we're too far gone, too broken, too proud. But He's always there, waiting for us to remember we need Him. Even after years of silence? Especially then." A star streaked across the sky, brief and brilliant. Maddie's mother used to say grace wasn't earned. That's what made it grace. Rebecca wrapped the cardigan tighter. Inside, something long frozen began to thaw, not dramatically, not all at once, but like spring arriving, inevitable, patient, gentle. "I want to hope again." The words came out raw. "I'm terrified I've forgotten how." "You haven't forgotten. You're doing it right now." Through the window, they could see Maddie's nightlight casting soft shadows. This house, these people, this moment. It all felt impossibly far from boardrooms and betrayals, yet more real than anything in her life had felt for years. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For reminding me I'm not alone in the boat?" Jack smiled, understanding. Above them, stars continued their ancient dance, and Rebecca let herself believe they danced for her, too. Monday morning arrived with sharp sunlight and the rhythmic crack of Jack's hammer against wood. Mrs. Hendrick's fence had been sagging for months, and Jack had finally gotten around to fixing it. The familiar work steadied his thoughts. Through the kitchen window he could see Rebecca pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Her free hand gestured sharply, boardroom habits dying hard. She'd been fielding calls since dawn, her voice carrying the steel edge he'd glimpsed beneath her vulnerability. "No, David. We absolutely cannot postpone. The shareholders need answers tomorrow." Jack drove another nail home. Tomorrow's board meeting hung over the house like weather waiting to break. A blue sedan crawled past, slowing near his driveway. The driver craned his neck, studying the house. Press, probably. Word traveled fast in small towns. And Rebecca Hawthorne's presence wouldn't stay secret long. The sedan circled back 10 minutes later. Jack set down his hammer and walked inside. Rebecca was still on her phone, now arguing about proxy votes. He waited until she finished. "We've got company. Reporter, I think." Her jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." "Rebecca, I've dealt with press my whole career. One small-town journalist won't—" "This isn't about handling. It's about Maddie. She doesn't need cameras in her face when she gets home from school." That stopped her. Her shoulders dropped. "You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't think—" "You're used to fighting alone. I get it. But your battles affect us now." Before she could respond, gravel crunched in the driveway. Tom Willis climbed out of his truck, carrying a manila folder. "Got something you need to see." They gathered around the kitchen table. Tom spread out printed emails, bank statements, transaction logs. His security firm had connections, favors owed from military days. Renwick got sloppy. These encrypted emails link him directly to offshore accounts. "Look here," Tom pointed to highlighted transfers. "He's been moving money for 2 years, using shell companies with your signature forged." Rebecca studied the documents, her trained eye catching patterns Tom might have missed. "This account in the Caymans. I supposedly opened it 3 months after my father died. I was barely functioning then, certainly not setting up offshore shelters." "That's your proof," Jack said. "Shows clear intent to frame you." "It's more than proof. It's ammunition." Life sparked in Rebecca's eyes. "With this, the board can't ignore Renwick's corruption. We can turn everything around." Tom leaned back. "There's more. My contact at the FBI might be interested in this. Wire fraud, forgery, Renwick's looking at federal charges." Rebecca gripped the papers like lifelines. For the first time since arriving, she looked like the CEO who'd built an empire, focused, formidable, ready for war. That evening, celebration felt appropriate. Jack grilled chicken on the back porch, while Rebecca helped Maddie set the picnic table. The reporter's car had disappeared, probably chasing other leads. They ate as sunset painted the sky orange and pink. Maddie chattered about her day, a spelling test triumph, playground drama involving disputed swing rights. "We should say what we're grateful for," Maddie announced suddenly. "Mom always made us do that." Jack's chest tightened at the mention, but he nodded. "You start, sweetheart." "I'm grateful for Miss Rebecca staying with us, and for Tom finding the bad stuff, and for chicken that's not burned." "My chicken's never burned," Jack protested. "Last Tuesday says different." Rebecca laughed, full and genuine. The sound transformed her face. "Your turn, Daddy." Jack considered. "I'm grateful for friends who show up when needed, for truth coming to light, for this moment right here." They turned to Rebecca. She set down her fork, suddenly uncertain. "I don't know if I remember how to do this." "Just say what's in your heart," Maddie encouraged. Rebecca's voice came out whispered. "I'm grateful for second chances." Her eyes met Jack's across the table. Something passed between them, understanding deeper than words. She'd been given more than shelter here. She'd been given the chance to remember who she was beneath the armor. And for people brave enough to stop for strangers in the rain. Maddie beamed. "See? You're good at being grateful." They cleared dishes together, moving in easy rhythm. Rebecca's phone, silent through dinner, buzzed on the counter. She almost ignored it, then saw the caller ID, blocked number. "Rebecca Hawthorne." "Miss Hawthorne." The voice was oily, professional. "This is Gerald Henley from Henley Marsh and Associates. I represent Charles Renwick." Ice crawled up her spine. "Mr. Renwick suggests you reconsider tomorrow's board meeting. Certain allegations you're planning to make could be considered defamatory." "The truth isn't defamation. Truth is subjective, but consequences aren't. You're staying with locals, I understand, a veteran and his young daughter. It would be unfortunate if your presence brought them unwanted attention, or worse." The line went dead. Rebecca's hand shook as she lowered the phone. Through the window, she watched Jack pushing Maddie on the rope swing he'd built, her laughter carrying on the evening air. She'd brought danger to their door. These good people who'd shown her kindness without condition, she'd made them targets. The evidence Tom found could save her company, but at what cost? Maddie's drawing was still in her bag, the three of them standing together, stick figures holding hands. A family she'd never meant to want, never thought she deserved. Now Renwick threatened to tear it apart before it could truly begin. Tuesday morning arrived wrapped in fog. Rebecca moved through breakfast preparations like a ghost, measuring coffee grounds with mechanical precision. Her hands trembled as she poured. Jack noticed immediately. She'd barely touched her eggs, pushing them around the plate while Maddie chattered about her upcoming science project. "You okay?" "Fine." The word came too quick, too sharp. Maddie left for the school bus, rainbow backpack bouncing. Jack waited until the diesel rumble faded before trying again. "Rebecca." She kept her back to him, scrubbing an already clean pan. "The board meeting's tomorrow. I should prepare. Look at me." When she turned, her face was a mask barely holding. Jack stepped closer. "What happened?" "Nothing. I told you. You're scared. I've seen scared before. Talk to me." The mask cracked. Renwick's lawyer called. "Last night after dinner." Jack went still. "What did he say?" "He made threats. Veiled ones, but clear enough. About you and Maddie. About what might happen if I pursue this." Her voice broke. "I've put you both in danger." Jack's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. "We've faced danger before. Not because of me. Not because I dragged my problems to your door. Nobody dragged anything. We chose to help. You didn't choose this." She gestured helplessly. "Lawyers, threats, reporters. This isn't your fight." "It is now." He pulled out his phone, scrolled to Tom's number. The conversation was brief, military efficient. Tom would arrange surveillance, coordinate with other veterans in town. Nobody would approach the property unnoticed. "You're not facing this alone," Jack said after hanging up. "We protect our own." "I'm not your own." The words hung between them. Jack studied her face, the fear, the guilt, something else struggling beneath. "Aren't you?" By evening, 2 trucks sat at strategic points along the country road. Tom's men. Veterans who understood watch duty. Rebecca recognized the tactical positioning, the subtle communication network Jack had activated with a few phone calls. Dinner was pot roast, but nobody had much appetite. Even Maddie picked at her food, sensing the shifted atmosphere. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Jack set down his fork. "No, sweetheart. Some people are upset with Miss Rebecca about business things, but we're safe." "Is someone trying to hurt her?" "Nobody's hurting anyone." His voice carried the certainty of a man who'd faced worse than corporate lawyers. "Tom and his friends are keeping an eye on things. Like camping, but boring." Maddie seemed to accept this, but kept glancing at Rebecca throughout the meal. After dishes, they attempted normalcy, homework, evening news, bedtime prayers. But tension saturated the air like humidity before a storm. Rebecca lay in the guest bed, staring at ceiling cracks. Every car passing made her heart race. She'd built an empire, commanded boardrooms, but this, endangering innocence, paralyzed her. At midnight, she gave up pretending to sleep. Her suitcase was in the closet. She packed quietly, efficiently. The borrowed clothes she left folded on the bed. Maddie's drawing she tucked carefully between business documents. The living room was dark except for moonlight through curtains. She set the suitcase by the door, found paper to write a note. Her rental car was supposed to arrive in the morning, but she could call a taxi to the nearest airport, disappear before dawn, before they woke, before... Going somewhere? Jack stood in the hallway, pajama bottoms and an old army t-shirt. He didn't look surprised. "I have to leave." She kept her voice low. The threat was clear. "My presence endangers you both. Running won't solve this. It will keep you safe. No, it'll tell Renwick his tactics work, that threatening innocent people gets results." Jack moved closer. "You run now? He wins. And he'll keep using the same playbook on the next person who stands up to him. I don't care about the next person. I care about..." She stopped, throat closing. "About what?" "About Maddie. About you." The admission ripped from her. "I can't be responsible for something happening to either of you." "We're not your responsibility. We're your dash dash." A small sob interrupted them. Maddie stood in the hallway, tears streaming. "Don't leave us." Rebecca's knees nearly buckled. Maddie ran to her, wrapping thin arms around Rebecca's waist. "Daddy, she needs help." "We promised." "Sweetheart." Rebecca's voice cracked. She looked desperately at Jack. "You belong here," Maddie said fiercely. "With us. Family doesn't leave when things get scary." Family. The word Rebecca had avoided, had feared, had secretly craved. Jack crossed to them, his hand settling on Rebecca's shoulder. "She's right. We don't abandon our people." Rebecca stood at the doorway, suitcase handle in one trembling hand. Maddie clinging to the other. Through the window, she saw Tom's truck parked at the corner, watching, protecting. Behind her was the door, escape, safety for them, loneliness for her. Before her stood the family she'd never planned to find. Jack's steady presence, Maddie's fierce love, both offering what her money had never bought: belonging. The suitcase handle felt cold in her grip. The choice stretched before her like a canyon. Stay and fight, risking them all, or run and lose the only real home she'd found. Rebecca stood frozen between two worlds, trembling, the weight of decision crushing her chest. Rebecca stood frozen at the doorway, suitcase weighing her hand like an anchor. Maddie's sobs shook through her small body as she clutched Rebecca's coat with both fists. "Please don't go. Please." Jack knelt beside his daughter, one strong hand on her shoulder. "Hey now, sweetheart." "Miss Rebecca isn't leaving just yet." His eyes met Rebecca's over Maddie's head. A question, a challenge, a plea, all wrapped in that steady gaze. The suitcase handle burned cold against Rebecca's palm. She looked down at Maddie's tear-streaked face, at those trusting eyes that saw something in her she'd stopped believing existed. The suitcase dropped with a soft thud. Maddie launched herself forward, arms wrapping tight around Rebecca's waist again. Rebecca's hands hovered, uncertain, before settling on the child's shoulders. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm still here." Jack stood slowly, watching Rebecca's face crumble. He waited until Maddie's sobs quieted to sniffles before speaking. "Maddie, go get Miss Rebecca some water from the kitchen." "But, Daddy?" "Go on. We'll be right here." Maddie reluctantly released Rebecca, padding toward the kitchen with one backward glance. When she disappeared around the corner, Jack picked up the abandoned suitcase, set it against the wall. "You run now. You're teaching her fear is stronger than faith." "Maybe it is." Rebecca's voice came out raw. "I'm terrified, Jack. Terrified of losing everything I built. Terrified of dragging you both down with me." "You think what you built is your company?" She looked at him confused. "You already have more than most people dream of, Rebecca." "Not the money or the power, this." He gestured to the modest living room, to the kitchen, where Maddie clinked glasses. "Connection. Belonging. Love. I don't deserve—" "Nobody deserves it. That's what makes it grace." Jack stepped closer. "But if you walk away from this family, from this chance, you'll lose something money can't buy back." Maddie returned with a glass of water, held it up to Rebecca with both hands. Rebecca took it, managed a shaky sip. "Are you staying?" Maddie's voice was small, hopeful. Rebecca looked between father and daughter. Two people who owed her nothing, who'd opened their home, their hearts, who stood ready to fight beside her against enemies they'd never made. "I'm staying." Maddie's smile broke like sunrise. She hugged Rebecca again, gentler this time. Jack's hand found Rebecca's shoulder, squeezed once. "Bed," he told Maddie. "School tomorrow." "But—" "No buts. Miss Rebecca will be here when you wake up." Maddie looked to Rebecca for confirmation. Rebecca managed a real smile. "I promise." After tucking Maddie in, Jack returned to find Rebecca on the couch, head in her hands. He sat beside her, the cushions dipping under his weight. "I've never been this scared." "Fear's not the enemy. Letting it control you is." "Renwick won't stop. He'll come after you, after Maddie." "Let him try." Steel in Jack's voice now. "I've faced worse than corporate bullies." Rebecca studied his profile in the lamplight, the quiet strength that ran through him like bedrock. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's right. Because Maddie loves you. Because, he paused, choosing words carefully. "Because you deserve someone in your corner who's not there for a paycheck." The simplicity of it broke something in Rebecca. Tears came then, real tears. Not the angry kind she'd shed in private over betrayals and takeovers. Jack didn't try to comfort her, just sat solid and present while she wept out years of loneliness. Morning arrived gray and determined. Rebecca woke on the couch, a quilt tucked around her. Coffee smell drew her to the kitchen, where Jack and Tom hunched over the dining table, documents spread between them. "Morning," Tom said without looking up. "Your boy Renwick's been busy. 3 more shell companies in the Caymans." Rebecca moved closer, studying the papers. "These transactions, they're all dated after my supposed authorization. Hard to authorize something when you were giving a keynote in Tokyo." Jack slid a printout toward her. "Tom pulled your travel records. This could work. This could actually—" She stopped, overwhelmed. "Board meeting's tomorrow," Tom said. "We're coming with you." "You can't. It's in the city, 5 hours away." "Already arranged coverage for Maddie, Mrs. Patterson, from church." Jack's tone brooked no argument. "We're not sending you into that boardroom alone." "It's not your fight." "Sure it is." Tom leaned back. "Jack vouches for you. That makes you family. Family shows up." Rebecca looked between them, these men who'd served their country, who'd earned the right to quiet lives, choosing to stand beside her. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll stop trying to handle everything alone," Jack said. Through the window, Rebecca saw Maddie's school bus approaching. The girl burst through the door moments later, backpack bouncing. "Miss Rebecca, you're still here. I promised, didn't I?" Maddie beamed, grabbed toast from Jack's plate. "Daddy says you have an important meeting tomorrow." "I do." "Are you scared?" Rebecca glanced at Jack, at Tom, at this child who'd shown her what courage really looked like. "A little. But I have help." "Good." Maddie shouldered her backpack. "Nobody should fight battles alone." The bus honked. Maddie hugged Rebecca quickly, then ran out the door. Rebecca watched her go, this little girl who'd changed everything. "Ready?" Jack asked. Rebecca turned back to the table, to the evidence spread like ammunition, to these unlikely allies who'd become so much more. "Ready." The truck's worn seats creaked with every pothole on Interstate 70. Rebecca clutched her portfolio, running through her defense for the dozenth time. "The timeline clearly shows I was in Tokyo when these transfers—" "Rebecca." Jack's voice cut through her rehearsal. "You're reciting facts to an empty truck. Facts are what matter in that boardroom. Hearts matter more. Those board members, they're people first, suits second." Rebecca stared at the highway stretching ahead. "You don't understand corporate culture. It's all performance, precision." It's fear." Jack merged around a semi. "Everyone's scared of looking weak, so they armor up with jargon and PowerPoints." She wanted to argue but couldn't. He'd named the thing she'd lived with for 20 years. "Speak truth," he continued. "Not corporate truth. Human truth." The city skyline emerged through morning haze. Rebecca's stomach clenched. Beside her, Jack remained steady as granite, hands sure on the wheel. "There." She pointed to the glass tower that housed her life's work. Media vans crowded the entrance. Reporters clustered like wasps around honey. "Vultures," Jack muttered, pulling into the parking garage. They took the elevator to the lobby. Through the glass doors, Rebecca saw the mob, cameras, microphones, accusations sharpened into spectacle. "We could use the service entrance." "No." Jack's jaw set. "You walk through that front door, head high." The doors opened to chaos. Voices crashed over them. "Rebecca, are the embezzlement allegations true? Will you resign? How much did you steal?" Jack moved in front of her, not aggressive, but immovable. His presence carved a path through the crowd. Rebecca stayed close, focusing on his broad back instead of the cameras capturing her humiliation. Inside, security held the line. The sudden quiet felt like diving underwater. "You okay?" Jack asked. Rebecca straightened her blazer with trembling fingers. "Define okay." The executive elevator rose in silence. 23rd floor, 24th. Each number on the display ticked toward judgment. The boardroom doors stood open. Directors filled the mahogany space, 15 faces ranging from skeptical to hostile. At the far end, Charles Renwick lounged in what used to be Rebecca's chair. "Rebecca." His smile could have curdled milk. "So good of you to finally show." Jack found a seat against the wall. Rebecca took the defendant's position, standing at the foot of the table like a subordinate in her own company. "Shall we dispense with pleasantries?" Board Chairman Wright barely looked up from his papers. "Mr. Renwick has presented serious allegations." Renwick stood, savoring the moment. $3 million siphoned through shell companies over 18 months. He clicked through slides on the wall screen, all bearing Rebecca's authorization codes. Murmurs rippled through the room. Rebecca forced herself to breathe. "Furthermore," Renwick continued, "she used company funds for personal expenses, hotels, flights, entertainment." "Business travel," Rebecca interrupted. "Can you prove that?" Renwick's eyebrow arched. "Because I have documentation suggesting otherwise." He distributed folders around the table. Directors flipped through pages of numbers, signatures, damning evidence manufactured with surgical precision. Rebecca's knees threatened to buckle, the weight of every eye in the room pressed down. Then she felt movement behind her, Jack, shifting forward just enough for her to sense his presence. "I'd like to present my response," she managed. "Please." Wright's tone suggested he'd already decided. Rebecca's hands shook as she opened her portfolio. The papers Tom had gathered seemed flimsy against Renwick's glossy presentation. "The transfers, Mr." Renwick references occurred on specific dates. She passed around copies. "Dates when I was demonstrably elsewhere, Tokyo, London, speaking at conferences with hundreds of witnesses. Authorization codes can be entered remotely," Renwick countered smoothly. "They can also be stolen." Rebecca found steadier ground. "Mr. Renwick had access to my office, my systems. He was trusted family friend, after all." Desperate accusations. "Facts." Jack's voice cut through the room. He hadn't stood, hadn't raised his voice, but every head turned. "Ma'am, may I?" Rebecca nodded. Jack moved forward, pulled Tom's thicker folder from his jacket. "Charles Renwick, 3 shell companies in the Caymans, registered under variations of his mother's maiden name. He set papers on the table. Money traced from those alleged embezzlements to these accounts, then from these accounts to Renwick Industries." Renwick's smirk faltered. "Who is this man?" "He has no standing here. I'm someone who knows truth from lies." Jack met each director's gaze. "Seen both in combat. Truth has evidence. Lies have theater." He spread more documents. Bank transfers, email timestamps, a web of deceit mapped in black and white. "This is illegally obtained," Renwick started. "This is proof." Rebecca found her voice again. "Every transaction he accused me of leads back to him." The room erupted. Directors grabbed papers, comparing evidence. Wright called for order. "We need to review this properly," Wright declared. 1 hour recess. Rebecca barely made it to the hallway before her legs gave out. Jack caught her, guided her to a bench. "I couldn't have stood in there without you." "You stood fine. Just needed backup." "I'm not used to having backup." "Get used to it." Rebecca looked at this man who'd driven 5 hours to stand beside her, who'd faced down her accuser without flinching, who'd shown her board what truth looked like when you stripped away pretense. "Jack, Rebecca." A director hurried toward them. "The FBI just arrived. Seems someone tipped them about Renwick's offshore accounts yesterday." Rebecca looked at Jack, who studied the ceiling with suspicious innocence. "Tom might have made a call," he admitted. For the first time in days, Rebecca felt something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. The recess stretched like pulled taffy. Rebecca stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city blur through exhausted eyes. Jack had gone to find coffee, real coffee, not the boardroom swill. "Enjoying the view?" Renwick's voice slithered across the marble lobby. Rebecca's spine stiffened. "One last look?" He moved closer, cologne sharp as his ambition. "You should. By tomorrow you won't be able to show your face in this city." "The evidence..." "Evidence." He laughed, low and ugly. You think that matters? I've got journalists on speed dial, blog posts already drafted. Your name will be poisoned by morning. Rebecca turned to face him. His mask had slipped completely now. No more pretense of charm or family friendship. Every charity board you sit on, every university that bears your donations, they'll drop you. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'll salt the earth of your reputation until Rebecca Hawthorne is synonymous with corruption. You'd destroy everything for spite, for winning. His teeth flashed. You never understood that. Business isn't about building. It's about being the last one standing. Step back. Jack's voice came quiet but firm. He stood between them now, coffee cups in hand, body relaxed but ready. Renwick scoffed. The soldier boy. Tell me, does she pay you by the hour or... I said step back. Something in Jack's tone made even Renwick pause. Not a threat, just fact, like gravity or sunrise. Security! Renwick's voice cracked. 2 guards appeared. This man is harassing me. The guards looked between them, confused. Rebecca was still the CEO on paper, but Renwick had been running things for weeks. Mr. Renwick was just leaving, Jack said calmly. I'm a board member. Not anymore. The elevator dinged. FBI agents stepped out, badges visible. Charles Renwick, we need you to come with us. The blood drained from Renwick's face. He looked at Rebecca with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, she said quietly. It is. The agents led him away. Other executives pretended not to stare. The lobby felt suddenly vast and empty. Rebecca's hands shook as she took the coffee Jack offered. He's right, though. About my reputation. The stories are already out there. Even if I win today, reputation can be rebuilt. You don't understand. My name, my company, it's everything I've worked for. And a life without integrity? Can that be rebuilt? Rebecca had no answer. The coffee tasted like ash. Jack's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, smiled despite everything. It's Maddie. Mind if I question mark? Please. He answered, putting it on speaker without thinking. Hey, sweetheart. Daddy. The little voice filled the hollow lobby. Did you help her yet? Did you help Miss Rebecca? Rebecca's composure cracked. Tears she'd held for hours finally spilled. We're trying, baby girl. Don't try, do. Like you always tell me. Maddie's faith came through clear as church bells. Miss Rebecca is good. I know it. God knows it. So you just gotta show everybody else. Maddie, Jack started. Tell her I'm praying. Tell her we're going to have spaghetti tonight to celebrate. Tell her... Rebecca took the phone with trembling fingers. Maddie? Miss Rebecca, are you okay? Are the mean people being mean? A laugh bubbled through Rebecca's tears. Some of them. Daddy won't let them. He's the strongest and the goodest, and you're smart and nice even when you pretend not to be. Maddie, you're gonna win. Know how I know? 'Cause good people help good people. That's what Mama used to say. The simple faith of it broke something open in Rebecca's chest. This child saw her not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, not as the sum of her accomplishments or failures, just as someone worth saving. Thank you, sweetheart. Welcome, Daddy. Bring her home safe, okay? Promise? Promise, baby girl. They hung up. Rebecca wiped her face, smearing what was left of her makeup. She doesn't even know me. Not really. She knows enough. How? Jack considered. Kids see clear. Adults, we complicate everything. But Maddie, she saw someone who needed help. Rest is just details. The elevator chimed. Wright's assistant appeared. Miss Hawthorne, they're ready. Rebecca straightened her blazer, lifted her chin. The tears had washed something away. Not weakness, but pretense. How do I look? Like someone worth saving. They walked back together. The boardroom felt different now. Charged, but not hostile. Directors hunched over documents comparing evidence. Wright stood at the head of the table. "Be seated." Rebecca remained standing. So did Jack. After reviewing all evidence and considering the FBI's involvement, this board has reached a decision. Wright's face gave nothing away. Mr. Renwick's membership is suspended pending federal investigation. Murmurs around the table. Furthermore, the board formally reinstates Rebecca Hawthorne as Chief Executive Officer with full apology for this disruption. The room erupted in applause. Directors who'd been skeptical an hour ago now offered congratulations. Rebecca heard none of it. The sound faded like traffic noise. She looked at Jack, steady, solid Jack, who'd stood between her and destruction without hesitation. "We did it," she whispered. His smile was answer enough. The drive back felt different. Rebecca's rental car followed Jack's truck through familiar roads that somehow looked new, clearer, like morning after storm. She'd insisted on her own vehicle this time, needing the space to think, but found herself missing their cramped cab, Maddie's chatter filling silence. Tom's house appeared first, then Maddie racing across his lawn before Jack even parked. "Daddy!" Miss Rebecca. She launched herself at them both, skinny arms trying to encompass two adults at once. "I saw on Mr. Tom's TV. You won." "We all won, sweetheart." Jack lifted her easily, but his eyes found Rebecca. The afternoon sun caught her differently here. Yesterday's boardroom warrior had softened into something more real. Blazer abandoned in the car, silk blouse untucked, hair escaping its careful pins. "Can we go home now?" Maddie asked. "I want to show Miss Rebecca something." Home. The word sat strange and warm in Rebecca's chest. News traveled fast in small towns. They'd barely reached Jack's driveway when Mrs. Chen from next door appeared with a casserole dish. "Saw the news, dear." She pressed the warm dish into Rebecca's surprised hands. "That awful man trying to frame you. Good riddance." Thank you, but how did you—" Channel 7 ran the whole story. FBI arrests and everything. Mrs. Chen patted Rebecca's arm like she was any neighbor, not someone worth billions. "Takes courage to stand up to bullies. We're proud of you." She bustled away before Rebecca could respond. More neighbors came. Not many. This wasn't that kind of showy place, but enough. Mr. Peterson brought beer and war stories about fighting his own crooked business partner decades ago. The Millers stopped by with their twin boys who wanted to see the lady from TV who caught the bad guy. Even Pastor Green appeared briefly, pressing a small wooden cross into Rebecca's palm. "For your desk," he said simply. "Reminder that you're never alone." Rebecca stood in Jack's small living room, surrounded by casseroles and congratulations from people who'd known her less than 2 weeks. They celebrated not her wealth or power, but something simpler, that she'd fought and won, that truth had prevailed. Her throat tightened with emotion she couldn't name. By evening, the house had quieted. Rebecca helped Jack clear dishes from well-wishers, while Maddie set the table for 3, their places already established without discussion. Dinner was simple. Leftover casserole, salad from Jack's garden, bread from the freezer. Rebecca found herself savoring each bite more than any 5-star meal. "We should say it," Maddie announced suddenly. "Say what, baby girl?" "What we learned. Like show and tell, but for grown-ups too." Jack and Rebecca exchanged glances over Maddie's head. "You start, Daddy." Jack set down his fork, considering. His weathered hands rested flat on the table, steady as always. "I learned that faith can steady a man when nothing else can." He looked at Rebecca. "Even when that man thinks he's got nothing left to offer." Rebecca's breath caught. "Your turn, Miss Rebecca." The old Rebecca would have deflected, made some corporate speak about learning experiences and team building, but that woman felt far away now, like someone she'd known once but lost touch with. "I learned—" Her voice cracked. She started again. "That love is the one thing money can't buy." Maddie reached across the table, small fingers wrapping around Rebecca's manicured ones. "My turn." "I learned that families can be chosen." She beamed at them both. "Like us." We chose each other, right? Neither adult trusted themselves to speak. Later, much later, after dishes and homework and bedtime stories, Rebecca found herself by the fireplace again. This spot had become hers somehow. The worn leather chair that caught the heat just right, the view of family photos on the mantel. Jack entered with 2 mugs of tea, moving quiet from years of not waking a sleeping child. "She goes down easier when you're here," he said, handing her the warm ceramic. "Fight sleep less." "She's afraid I'll leave." "Will you?" The question hung between them like smoke. Rebecca stared into the fire. "My penthouse has smart everything, lights that know when I'm home, temperature that adjusts to my body heat, a refrigerator that orders my groceries." She took a shaky breath. "And it's the loneliest place on earth." Jack settled into the chair beside hers, his chair she'd learned. They sat close enough to touch, but didn't. Not yet. "I have a board meeting Thursday. Investors to reassure Friday. Lawyers all next week for the Renwick mess." "I know, but I don't want to go back there, to that life. That empty castle in the sky." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Outside, night birds called to each other, and somewhere a dog barked at shadows. Jack's hand found hers in the space between chairs, not demanding, not pulling. Just there, warm and calloused and real. "Stay as long as you need." His voice rumbled low, private. "We'll make room." She turned their joined hands over, studying how they fit. His weathered from work and war, hers soft despite all her battles being fought in boardrooms. "What if I need forever?" "Then we'll make room for that too." Rebecca squeezed his fingers, feeling anchored for the first time in memory. The fire crackled. The old house settled around them with comfortable sounds. Upstairs, Mattie slept peaceful, no longer afraid of morning departures. "I'm home," Rebecca whispered, tasting the truth of it. Jack squeezed back, and that was answer enough. 6 weeks had passed since the boardroom battle. Rebecca had learned to live in 2 worlds, 3 days in the city, managing her empire, 4 days in the small town building, something more precious. Her driver no longer questioned the Friday afternoon route to Jack's place. Her assistant blocked her weekends without asking. The Saturday of the ribbon-cutting dawned perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of weather that made small towns shine. Rebecca stood before the newly renovated community center, scissors in hand, surrounded by faces she'd come to know. The Jack Donovan Veterans Rehabilitation Center stretched behind her, fresh paint gleaming. She'd fought her board for the funding, argued past their spreadsheets and projections. "Some investments," she'd told them, "can't be measured in returns." Tom Willis had organized the veterans. Pastor Green blessed the building. The high school band played slightly off-key, but with enthusiasm. Half the town packed the lawn, kids darting between adults' legs, elderly folks in lawn chairs they'd brought from home. Jack stood to her left in his only suit, the one from his wife's funeral, though Rebecca pretended not to know that. Mattie bounced beside him in a yellow sundress, ribbon in her hair, practically glowing with pride. "Speech," someone called. Others took up the chant. Rebecca had prepared remarks on index cards. She pulled them out, looked at the corporate phrases, then tucked them away. "When I first came here," she began, voice carrying clear, "I thought I was the one with something to offer. Money, connections, power." The crowd quieted, but I learned something from a 10-year-old girl and her father. The strongest fortress isn't made of money or power. She found Jack's eyes. It's built on love and faith. She gestured to the building behind her. "This center isn't my gift to you. It's my thank you for showing a lost woman the way home." The applause rolled warm across the lawn. Veterans whistled. Church ladies dabbed their eyes. Mattie broke from Jack's side and wrapped her arms around Rebecca's waist, nearly knocking her over. Rebecca cut the ribbon with Mattie's small hands over hers. The crowd surged forward to explore the center, therapy rooms, job training stations, a chapel in the back that Tom had insisted on. Jack appeared at her elbow as she watched neighbors stream through the doors. "You did good," he said quiet. "We did good." That evening, the celebration had wound down to just the three of them. Rebecca's heels sat abandoned by the door. She'd traded her business dress for one of Jack's flannel shirts and jeans she now kept in the guest room closet. Dinner was nothing fancy, grilled cheese and tomato soup. Maddie's request after the day's excitement. They ate on the porch, watching fireflies begin their evening dance. "Tell the story again," Maddie demanded, curled between them on the porch swing. "Which story, baby girl?" "How we met Miss Rebecca." Jack started as he always did now. "Well, it was raining something fierce that Thursday night." Rebecca listened to the familiar rhythm, adding her parts where they fit. How scared she'd been. How Maddie's raincoat had felt like armor against more than weather. How Jack's steady presence had anchored her when everything else spun wild. The story had become family legend already, told and retold, polished smooth with handling. When they finished, Maddie sighed content, snuggling deeper into Rebecca's side. The swing creaked gently. Crickets sang their evening hymn. Somewhere down the street, the Harrison kids called out in a game of tag. "See, Daddy?" Maddie said suddenly, her voice drowsy but certain. "We saved her." Jack's eyes went soft. That misty look Rebecca had learned meant he was thinking of his wife, of time's strange circles, of second chances nobody expects. Rebecca pulled Maddie closer, breathing in her strawberry shampoo and grass-stained innocence. "No, sweetheart." Her voice came out whisper soft, thick with truth. "You saved me." Maddie tilted her face up, studying Rebecca with those wise child eyes. "We saved each other then. That's what families do." The simplicity of it, the perfect truth, stole Rebecca's words. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of peach and gold. They stood together at the porch rail, watching day surrender to evening. Jack's arms settled around Rebecca's shoulders, natural as breathing now. Maddie stood between them, their hands linked across her small shoulders. Rebecca thought of her penthouse, standing empty except for the housekeeper's weekly visit. She thought of board meetings and spreadsheets and the endless climb toward more. All of it felt distant as another country, another life lived by someone she used to know. Here was real. Jack's solid warmth, Maddie's fingers twisted with hers, the smell of cut grass and barbecue smoke from the neighbors, the community center standing proud down the street, already filling with purpose. "Stay," Jack said quiet, like he could read her thoughts. Not a question anymore, just a gentle command, a prayer, a promise. "Yes," she answered, meaning it down to her bones. The horizon stretched endless before them, gold fading to purple, day becoming night, becoming day again. Their shadows merged into one, veteran, child, and billionaire become something simpler and infinitely more precious. Family. The porch boards creaked familiar under their feet. Inside, the coffee maker would need setting for morning. Maddie would need tucking in soon, though she'd fight it. There were lawyers to call Monday, meetings to reschedule, a life to keep reshaping. But for now, they stood together in the dying light. Three souls who'd found each other in the storm and chosen to build something new from the wreckage of their separate griefs. The first stars appeared, bright and steady as faith itself. They were home. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.